Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video and joining in what's going to be another homemade black powder test. It's a blended black powder of Mesquite and Alder. I've got another batch going right now. It is actually Mesquite and Mullen, and I'll tell you why I came to that conclusion in just a minute. Okay, and I'm just going to give you guys a short version just simply because I've noticed overall when it comes to homemade black powder, the views are dropping off, so it's almost like I'm beating a dead horse now. And, you know, due to some of the comments in the comment sections, I just don't see any value in it anymore for the overall context. Again, like I mentioned in the past, these numbers really only mean something to me. Okay, so the reason why on the batch of gunpowder that I'm making right now that I chose Mullen, just simply because as a single source gunpowder, peanut shell in the first shot going down a clean barrel had a velocity of 1826. Mullen had a velocity of 1813. So we're only talking 13 feet, and that could just be easily accounted for by the changing of the sun, temperature, or something like that. So 13 feet a second ain't gonna amount to a hill of beans. But here was one of my deciding factors. 5 shots, 80 grains by weight with peanut shell. 5-shot average was 1760. With a spread of 34, whereas Mullen 5-shot average 1802 with a spread of 38. So that was one of the deciding factors in choosing Mullen, is that it appears to me that Mullen in a given charge produces a little bit more gas than what the peanut shell does overall, okay, discounting going down a clean barrel. So that was one of the reasons why I chose Mullen. The other reason is because when you're a guy my age, peanuts are not the best thing to be eating. So what peanut shell I have left right now I'm going to save for a future date. Pistachio shells, a pistachio nut is really good and more healthier for a guy my age. And pistachio shell, first shot going down a clean barrel, 1828, was better than peanut shell. Okay, and 5-shot average, see, 1786. So on the 5-shot average, it dropped down, whereas Mullen stayed above 1800. So I'm a little hopeful on what this is going to do. And just so that everybody can see right now, this might change. I have some of my Mesquite Alder already grained in size, but I have not set this in the sun yet to finish drying. I do that all at once. But as it stands right now, 80 grains by weight occupies about 81, 82 grains by volume. And again, that might change once this dries out. And the question that I have is, do these little grains shrink in size as they dry out? We all should recognize that when things are wet, they swell, and when things dry out, they shrink. So if this does shrink, and it occupies 80 grains by volume in the weight, then we might have an idea that as it dries, it might shrink a little bit, giving you a little bit more room to get a little bit more powder in there. Okay. Now the other thing that I want to address real quick is, I've noticed in the comment sections there's a couple of you guys telling me that I can get better gunpowder basically if I mill it faster. Okay, because that harder hammering binds the 3 components better and all this kind of stuff. And then if I get a treadmill and work it, do this and do that, and I can get more RPMs out of it, put a bigger bucket on it, I can mill more gunpowder at a time. Right now, I'm not interested in milling more gunpowder at a time, but let me show you how I already resolved the RPMs on my ball mill, which is nothing more than just a Harbor Freight rock tumbler. So there you have it. What are those RPMs? Now I have a stopwatch that counts backwards. You've seen the green mark. I'm getting 132 RPMs. So my ball mill is spinning fast enough, and it didn't cost me anything to do this other than just a little time and a little common sense in thinking how we can get these ball mills to spin faster. What I did several years ago is I actually built up a thick layer of electrical tape right where that jar is going to set. And during the summer months, it's not a good thing because the electrical tape heats up and then it starts getting smaller and smaller. So what I did to fix it permanently, now that I knew I was on the right track, I tested with this first. Drilled a hole through the center. Well, another piece because I misdrilled it. my drill press doesn't drill straight, it kind of walks, and since I didn't have a long enough bit to go through completely, I went through one end, marked the center, and hoped that I would have hit the center to center, but I didn't. But what I did is I think I made 2 of them before I finally figured out what I really needed to end up with. And what it is it's the wood that I used is mahogany. And I started with something larger than what I thought I was going to need, larger than what my buildup of electrical tape was. And I started with that. I got it onto my wood lathe, turned it round. Then I got it to where I thought it was going to be right, installed it, turned it on, and it kind of jumped more than I was expecting because I don't have a carriage on my wood lathe that keeps the knife in the same spot. So once I got everything to the point that I actually wanted, which also included the carrier roller, okay, the idler roller, what I did is I took a horseshoe rasp and I got it really, really hot, and then I allowed the sharper end, the rough end on the horseshoe rasp to burn into the plastic and dimple it. Okay. Now I had a two-sided purpose for that. The first purpose was to help make the rollers turn a lot more evenly so that it didn't jump. Okay. And as you can see, it jumps a little bit right now, but I'm happy with that. That works for me, so really, who cares, right? So I let it roll like that with the weight in it for several hours until the obtrusive jumping stopped. And you see what I got right now. Once I got that, then I went ahead and put a couple of wraps of electrical tape on it, because if I'd have left it that way, the mill jar would have kept removing wood. So that's why I have electrical tape on those rollers now, okay? And again, it's 132 RPMs. So my ball mill is turning fast enough with my lead tin media. So those issues for me, guys, have already been resolved. You know, the same thing with lead versus brass media. I've already resolved that with the recent videos I put up. The only difference is one just puts a lot bluer smoke than the other one does. That's all it does. And you can continue to think and believe that, well, lead contaminates your gunpowder. Well, let me tell you this. And I showed this to my friend William when he was up here. Real recently, I noticed as I'm, going through graining, and I'm getting these little white specks in it. Where's these white specks coming from? Well, on these plastic mill jars, the plastic that you glue inside that acts as a step to help throw those. Well, what's happening is the ball's hitting those, and over time, it starts breaking off little pieces of white plastic. whether you do that with brass or lead. So your gunpowder is still getting contaminated, even if it's by the little plastic pieces. So for the past 2 or 3 mill batches that I've been doing, I've been actually picking those little white specks out. So I know my gunpowder that I've been testing is absolutely clean, because I take the time painstakingly to pull those out. Now, I just recently replaced all those steps, and I did the one batch, the Mesquite Alder, and there wasn't any white pieces in it. So that stopped that problem right there. 30 grains of Mullen Mesquite blend. I'm going to flip it over and do 30 grains of Mullen in Mesquite. Correction, that first burn was Mesquite Alder, and it's a 2-to-1 blend. 2 parts Mesquite, 1 part Alder. This is the Mesquite Mullen, 2 parts Mesquite, 1 part Alder. Let's see what it does. I think that went up a little bit quicker. So we'll start with the Mesquite Mullen right here. It feels a little gritty. And you press on it a little more hard. That's not too terribly bad. Now, let me go through the main burn. Yeah, it's a little gritty. Perhaps a little dirty. I'll admit that. Oh. Fingers going through the smoke a whole lot smoother. That's encouraging. Not half bad, actually. Ah, it's coming off the glass a lot easier. Now there it is on the finger, but once again, you would expect that. So I would say the Mesquite Mullen, this is the Mesquite Alder right here, and this is the Mesquite Mullen. See, and I couldn't wipe off as much of the burn in the center as I did with the Alder. So let's take this out to the shooting range and see what it does in the gun. Well, at this point of the video, I need to make some clarifications, and I want to let all of you know how much time I've saved now in milling with this faster RPM. And you know, in the past when I did the build-up with the electrical tape, I was getting about 75 to 80 RPMs, and I was still going up to about 30 hours before it was really beginning to, you know, puck hard and tighten on the bottom of the mill jar. Now, 20 hours and it's done. Okay, but for the purpose of these next tests, I've got 4 gunpowders that I'm going to be testing, and as you saw in the burn, I'm going to be doing a side-by-side shooting test with the Mesquite Alder and the Mesquite Mullen. I've already milled up a 100-gram batch of Mesquite peanut shell, and I've got a batch drying right now of Mesquite and pistachio shell. And I'm going to just do these side-by-side comparisons and then decide which one I'm going to stick with. Because for me at this point, I'm just beating a dead horse, because it really comes down to how much gas is your charcoal source producing in a given burn. And I've showed the chart several times. Each source of gunpowder produces a little bit more, with Alder buckthorn producing the most. That is without comparing it to Mesquite. And until I get some buckthorn Alder, I can't make a complete decision as to which one's better, but I will tell you right now, Mesquite burns a little dirty, but the feet per second, to me, it's just checkmate at this point. So I'm going to do those two tests, And I also want to make a clarification, and thanks to my friend Broken Feather, who came up here and spent the day. We took a walk back here, and what I thought was aspen, it was actually narrow leaf cottonwood. It's not the same as those huge big cottonwood trees that I can still see back here, but this narrow leaf cottonwood is actually a cousin to aspen. So that's why I made a mistake in misidentifying it, because I thought it was aspen. But thank you, William, for clarifying that. And I decided I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm going to say it anyways, just because I want complete honesty on this channel. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. Okay? So if you go back in this channel, the video I did blending Osage with what I thought was aspen, it was actually long leaf cottonwood. And when you look at the specific gravity of long leaf cottonwood, it's right in line with aspen. So and it's also a cousin to willow trees also. So that's why this long leaf cottonwood produced good results. But it's not a true aspen. It's a cousin to aspen. But as far as everything else, it's pretty much all the same. Okay? So I want to make that clarification. And there's a couple other videos where I blended the aspen. I forget what it is right off the top of my head. But I think I did 3 or 4 videos blending that aspen, which is actually longleaf cottonwood. And I got good results with it all. So I want to make that clarification. Now, before I get out and test, this is going to be pretty much it for me in black powder, because as I've mentioned, I've got what I want. I've got a stockpile of black powder right now, and I really want to narrow down the time I spend making black powder is going to be for me personally. And since I've demonstrated on this channel, heartwood is better than blending your gunpowder, say like with a sapwood. And again, it comes down to the amount of gas that your charcoal source is capable of producing in a given burn. Okay, here's our test. Mesquite blended with Alder versus Mesquite blended with Mullen. And if you're curious, and if you can see it just right, 80 grains by weight is just about 82 grains by volume. Let's see what it does. Well, I'll just consider that a fouling shot. 28.47. No way. Get loaded up. That's why I'm taking 6 shots and then getting rid of what is obviously not true numbers. So we'll get loaded up and do it again. Well, it's a good thing I got that cover on the face of my chronograph. That patch hit it dead center. For the first shot, it's pretty clean. A little torn, but clean.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Well, it's not half bad. It's pretty clean. And loading the second shot was fairly easy. Didn't have any issues with it. So I think I may have resolved the issue as to why my second shots in previous video was difficult to load. And I demonstrated that burning some black powder on that plate glass on top of the lube that I'm using now in the cleanse oil. And we saw that cleanse oil was pretty dirty. All right, get loaded up, get you another shot. $15.60, but as you saw, I had to adjust the angle of the chronograph because the shade in the sun is just right to be wrong. So obviously I'm going to be retaking that one. Well, there's the patch. I can say blending this Mesquite with Alder cleaned it up a little bit. So that's encouraging. All right, I'm going to get the chronograph resituated with the shade, see if I can't get a more accurate number. (2005). I took that first hood off to see if that would make a difference, because it's the first hood that's actually casting a shadow on that rear sensor. I don't know, maybe this might be a bust, but at least it's clean. It's cleaner. Well, that patch is just as clean as all the others. All right, let's get some more numbers. (1962). 1983. Well, you saw that. Who knows where that bullet hit? Let me get a number. Well, as you can tell, the breeze is picking up a little bit more. Found that patch. Didn't find the two previous ones, but I found that one. It's not all that bad. And even with that heavy hang fire, I still hit in that cluster of shots. I'll show you the target at the end. Okay, let me see if I get one more number, and then we'll switch over to the Mesquite Mullen. Still got too much sun reflecting. Let me go get a close-up. Well, I might have to take one more shot because that's a duplicate. Either that or I could just keep it. I think I'll take another shot. (1969). I'm impressed. I'm impressed with Mesquite, Alder. Numbers are really fantastic. My grouping's pretty good. I mean, I'm shooting a little to the right today, and that could be just angle of the sun or the way I'm holding it in the rest. But I'm gonna clean out the barrel, clean up the luck a little bit. You can kind of see, I hope. It's not too terribly bad. For as many shots as I've taken, pretty clean as far as I'm concerned. So just in case anybody is real curious, that's that wet patch. That's the first patch. That is not half bad at all. I mean, compared to some of the other patches that I've done when I've done these tests, that ain't bad at all. So I'm drying out the barrel. This is the third patch. That's pretty clean as far as I'm concerned. Someone else can argue, but hey, go argue with someone else. I couldn't see it through the view screen, but it's 1979. Just real quick, it's pretty clean. (1962). It's even cleaner. No problems loading. (1964). 1942. Okay, well, as it would happen, my friend Jonathan called just at that critical moment, but I still got 1957. All right, I'm gonna go mark off the target and finish my conversation with my buddy here. So, you may be curious as to what my final conclusion is. I've got the targets pulled, got the numbers all worked through. I've got the patches sitting in front of me. And just looking at the patches right here, I would say that the Mesquite Mullen is a smidgen cleaner than the Mesquite Alder. Okay, and you know, remember, I'm just trying to narrow everything down. I've got two more gunpowders. I want to do it side-by-side test with the Mesquite, because as far as I'm concerned, checkmate with the Mesquite. And these numbers just confirm my first testing with Mesquite. Okay, so the patches are a smidgen cleaner. Loading was a little bit easier with the Mesquite Mullen. So that I'm keeping into my memory bank. Now, with the Mesquite Alder, I get rid of shot number 1, shot number 3, shot number 4. Okay, so the first shot was 2,847, and we know that that's not a good number. Shot number 3 was 1,506. We know that's not a good number. And shot number 4 was 2,005. So I kept the 4 numbers that are in the 1,900 range and that one shot at 1,885. Okay, so with those 5 numbers, I got an average of 1,953 with a spread of 98. I'm going to show you the target. Everything is right there. And I know it's shot a little high and a little to the right. But that could be because of the extra feet per second. Because now I'm into the 1900s. Okay. Now, based on the Mesquite Mullen, I got a 5-shot average of 1960 with a spread of 37. But there's the group. So, based on these 2 targets, I'm going to keep the Mesquite Mullen as my blend until I test the peanut shell and the pistachio shell. That could change, but just based on these 2 right here, I think the Mesquite Mullen shot a whole lot better, and I got a few more feet per second and a whole lot less of a spread. So for me, that's a deciding factor right there. Plus, it was a little easier to load, and the patches look a little bit cleaner. So that's pretty much where I stand with that right now. I've got my last batch of Mesquite pistachio shell drying right now, so hopefully I can get that done within a reasonable amount of time, and I can get a day when there's not so much wind. So anyhow, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you gleaned something from this, I hope you give it a thumbs up and share it with your bestest of buds. Hopefully we'll see you real soon. Hold on a second before we completely say goodbye. You might be curious. There's the powder measure for the Mesquite Mullen, and it came out to be just about the same volume as the Mesquite Alder, so there's no difference right there. All right, we'll catch you in the next one.